present today. During the past 6 years, Guild members have donated thousands of dollars for material and sold hundreds of hours to create over 106 quilts that have one specific purpose: to thank and honor veterans and civil servants for their service to our country and community. Many of the women are here today in the audience who helped sew these quilts as well, and are up here to present. If you are here and have sewn quilts of honor and quilts of valor, please rise. We all want to thank people for their handiwork. In preparation for this ceremony, I have the privilege to talk with the men and women who serve the many branches of the United States military and intelligence units. Each time I learn more about the decades of effort to secure and maintain peace in the world. The importance of the thousands of complex roles that men and women perform cannot be overstated. Whether it is guard duty, delivering supplies, feeding the troops, providing intelligence, parachuting, repairing engines, serving on the front lines, providing medical care, etc., etc. The complex staging of our hundreds of worldwide military bases and diplomatic corps and their strategies confirms the fact that each role is important and far-reaching. The Quilt of Honor project holds very specific meaning and very special meaning. This quote best describes our motivation. Today and always, let us remember the sacrifices that have been made for our freedom and our communities. Without a doubt, these quilted hugs of gratitude also recognize that when these men and women joined the United States Armed Services and took their oath of office, their dedication to our country and our community has continued in so many capacities throughout their lives. So, with no further ado, please allow me to introduce this year's Quilt of Honor recipients. If you are present when I call your name, please come forward and I will introduce you as Guild members will help to show our gratitude for your service by honoring you with a quilt. Lawrence Schumacher. Lawrence served during World War II. Lawrence served during World War II in the United States Navy from 1943 to 45. He was a gunner's mate third class on the bow of the destroyer, the U.S. Niblock DD-424. He was deployed throughout the Mediterranean, southern France, England, Guantanamo Bay. His ship went through the Panama Canal on the way to Japan when the atomic bomb dropped. They, in turn, escorted U.S. Marine Division, accompanying the U.S. Air Force convoy ships through the Philippines to Japan, then made several trips to Alaska to bring the troops home from Seattle and to San Francisco before heading back through the Panama Canal to their home port in Charleston, South Carolina. Lawrence received both the European and Pacific medals with 2 stars, the Occupation Medal, Victory Medal, and many others. After service, he completed the Radio Electronics School in Chicago, but due to a hearing loss, he sought work in agriculture. First, he sold eggs for 6 years, and then worked 32 years for the Larson Dean companies. He served on the Council for Trinity Lutheran Church, and for the past 30 years, Lawrence has enjoyed doing woodworking in his retirement. Thank you, Lawrence. Peter Fernelius. During the Vietnam War, Peter served in the U.S. Army from 1963 to 66. He was deployed to Japan and to the U.S. Embassy in Saigon, South Vietnam. He worked on TDY communication systems. He received the Good Conduct Medal, the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, and after service, he worked as a machinist, programmer, and operator. Thank you, Peter. Clarice Fernelius. Serving in the U.S. Army from 1963 to 65, Clarice was deployed to Japan as a teletype and tape relay specialist. She then served in communications at the Fort Knox Processing Deserters. She received letters of appreciation and commendation. After service, she worked in the hospital admissions and the cash office at Century Festival Foods. Thank you. Arnold Fisher. Is Arnold here? Oh, thank you. I thought so. Thank you. Arnold served in the U.S. Army National Guard and Army Reserves from 1953 to 61. He was Staff Sergeant E6 in the 127th Infantry Mortar Section. He was a forward observer, squad leader in mortars. In 1959, Arnold helped establish the new tank unit in Modesto, California. As a present unit that was being deployed to Korea. He received the Expert Rifle and Pistol Marksmanship medals. Thank you, Arnold. Charles Truman. Charles served in the U.S. Air Force from 1965 to 69. He was a Sergeant E4. He was deployed to the Herschel U.S. Air Force Base in Milton Hall, England. It was one of the 9 USB bases in England alone during the Vietnam War. They focused on supplying troops. He served and received the Good Conduct Medal. Charles is a member of the American Legion Post 166 and Vietnam Veterans 409. After service, he worked 40 years at Jones Dairy Farm. Thank you. Dwayne Schwab. Come over here. Dwayne served in the U.S. Army from 1965 to 67. He was a combat medic, specialist 4th class. Deployed to Vietnam, he was a medic for the troops fighting combat missions. He received the Vietnam Service Medal, the Vietnam Combat Medal, Expert Rifleman, and Army Commendation Medals. After service, he worked 36 and a half years for We Energies and served for an usher at Bethany Lutheran. Thank you, Dwayne. Dennis Gebhardt Cruz. Dennis served in the U.S. Army from 1960 to 70. He was a Sergeant E5. Deployed to Vietnam, he served in what was known as the Triangle of Southwest Saigon. As a mortar expert, he plotted rounds. All the while, he avoided stepping on booby traps and being fired upon. He received the Bronze Star, Army Commendation Medal for heroism, and Army Commendation Medals for meritorious achievement, the Vietnam Service Medal, and Expert Rifleman. He is a lifetime member of the Vietnam Veterans. After service, he went to school on the GI Bill and became a machinist, tool, and die operator. He served on the St. Paul Church Council. Thank you, Dennis. Merlin Klocko. Did I say your name right? Close. And how do you pronounce it properly? Klocko. Klocko. Merlin served in the U.S. Army from 1968 through 70 in the infantry. He was deployed to Vietnam and fought a year in ambush, including on Hamburger Hill in the Ashwa Valley. He received 2 bronze ribbons, a Bronze Star, the Air Medal, Combat Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, and Sharpshooter Medal. He is a lifetime member of the VFW Post 1879. After the service, Merlin worked 8 years for Bronze Home and 20 years for the Lake Mills School District. He was an avid baseball and softball player and umpire. He enjoyed fishing and hunting and spending time with family and his grandchildren. Thank you, Merlin. Donald Gross. From 1966 through 70, Donna served in the U.S. Air Force, the Strategic Air Command Division. A Sergeant E4 during the Vietnam War, he worked in Ground Communications Installation Agency in the Thailand, Texas, and in electronics in North Dakota. After service, he continued working 44 years in electronics, 22 years at the Jefferson Radio Clinic and 22 in his repair business in Fort Atkinson. Through the years, Don served in Lions Club, Knights of Columbus, St. Vincent de Paul, Food Pantry, Bark River Woods, and the Historical Society. He enjoys spending time with family. Thank you, Donald. James Rendon. Okay. Okay. Jim served in the U.S. Army from 1963 through 66 in the 586 Communications Signal Corps. He was a specialist fourth class. Before Vietnam, he was an instructor in cryptography and decoding classified security. During the early stages of combat in the Pleiku Central Highlands? Pleiku Central Highlands of Vietnam, his first cavalry was fired on as they set up the communication towers. He received the Good Conduct Medal, the Sharpshooter Medal, and the Vietnam Service Medal. Jim is a lifetime member of the Vietnam Veterans. After service, Jim was a manager at Schweiger Furniture for 30 years and worked 6 years as a manufacturing manager for Rowe Pottery. Thank you, Jim. John Nell. Oh, yes. In John's absence, Paul Nell will receive John's quilt. John served 26 years of active duty in the U.S. Navy from 1988 to 2014. As a naval captain, he served all over the world and in 3 major wars: Desert Storm, OIF, OEF, Iraq Freedom, and Afghanistan. He commanded surface warfare, combat operations, and on the ground as a senior advisor attached to the U.S. Army to the Ministry of Interior to advise and build a sustainable national police force in Afghanistan. He received the Legion of Merit, a Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, and the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medals and Achievement Medals. He currently resides in San Diego. Thank you for receiving on his behalf. Floyd Pfeiffer. I didn't stack one in order. Okay. Floyd served in the U.S. Air Force from 1952 to 55. He was an airman first class on the maintenance squad. He was deployed to the Toul-Rossier Air Force Base in Nancy, France. The massive destruction during the Battle of the Bulge was still very apparent when he was stationed there, especially in the area of the Bastogne, Belgium. The recovery of aircraft was an ongoing during the Cold War in Europe. He received the Good Conduct and Sharpshooter medals. After service, Floyd worked 40 years at Jones Dairy Farm and served 8 years on the St. Paul's Church Council. Thank you, Floyd. Lee Woods. Just step back a little so we can, okay. Excuse me, Leo. From 1966 to 69, Leo served in the U.S. Navy. Attached to the Marine Corps, he was a hospital man, Navy corpsman. Deployed to Da Nang, Vietnam, Leo worked in the 1st Reconnaissance Marine Battalion. He received the Vietnam Combat Medal. After service, he worked 14 years at Jones Dairy Farm, 14 years at Midwest Sofa, and 11 years at Universal Electronics. His hobbies are fishing and hunting. Thank you, Leo. Gene Buchholz could not be here today, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about his service to our country. Gene served 12 years in the U.S. Air Force and the Air National Guard from 1956 to 68. He was a staff sergeant and Tech 6 in the 176th Fighter Interceptor Squadron. He was an instructor at Truax Air Force Base in electronics. He received advanced certification in electronics and marksmanship medals. After service, he worked at the University of Wisconsin Space Science Engineering Center on numerous NASA projects. His team built the high-speed spectrometer for the Hubble telescope. That spectrometer was the size of a telephone booth, and it plugged into the Hubble, which was the size of a school bus. A Greyhound bus. He also worked on projects in the Goddard Space Center and completed a lot of packages for the NASA shuttles and Pioneer Venus projects. Mike Hazel. As a corporal, Mike served in the U.S. Marines from 1969 to 71, and again in 1971 to 76. He was a sergeant then and in the U.S. National Guard. He served in the Vietnam Infantry in the Da Nang Air Force Logistics Command. Defending a section between two bridges on the Song River, his unit was fired upon every day and conducted ambushes. The unit constantly wore full combat gear and helmets, 24/7, and had 1 day off a month. Like so many Vietnam veterans, Mike's unit was sprayed with Agent Orange during the combat missions, which has had long-term health effects such as tumors and cancer, neuropathy, diabetes, etc., etc. He received the Good Conduct Medal in the Marines, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal. After service, Mike worked 31 and a half years at General Motors, and after retirement, operated a lawn service for many more years. Thank you, Michael. Benjamin and Nicole Purcell are not able to attend today, but Ben's mother, Roxanne Schultz, will receive their quilt. Oh, she has brought a picture of them. Benjamin and Nicole are currently stationed in the Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. Ben served active duty as a munitions specialist in the Air Force from 2004 to 2008 in Japan, and then in Mountain Home in Idaho. He re-enlisted in the Air National Guard from 2011 to 14 and currently serves full-time in the Air Force Reserve's 44th Fighter Unit. He was deployed to the Al Dong Fa United Emirates in 2017 to 18 to take down ISIS-controlled drug cartels. He is a Master Sergeant E7. Now wait. Nicole served active duty in the United States Air Force Munitions Specialist since 2004. She is currently serving. She was stationed for 2 years in Italy, then to Mountain Home, and now Tyndall. Nicole was deployed to Iraq in 2005, Kuwait in 2009, and United Arab Emirates in 2012. As a Tech Sergeant 6, she conducts Wi-Fi and missile shot trainings for pilots. Most of her career has worked with live ammo and missiles. Both Ben and Nicole balanced their careers in the military while raising 2 children. Thank you to them, please. Richard Miles. Richard was in the U.S. Army from 1967 to 70. He served in the 725th Military Police Battalion as a Sergeant E5. He was deployed to Korea. Serving in the 2nd Division, he patrolled villages, provided convoy support, and security for Army depots. During his duty, the U.S. Pueblo recon ship was taken by North Korea. When the U.S. Navy airplanes was shot down, he was also there. He was awarded the Armed Service Expeditionary Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Medal, Korean Defense Medal, and Sharpshooter Rifle and Marksmanship Pistol Medals. Richard is a past commander of the American Legion Post 166, adjunct to Post 166, and chaplain to VFW Post 1879. After service, he worked 30 years as a State of Wisconsin State Park Ranger. Thank you, Richard. Wayne Weckler. Wayne served in the U.S. Army from 1963 to 69. After the ARMG, which means, I'm not sure what the ARMG, I forgot to ask you that. National Guard, okay. He served as a sergeant in the local guard unit. He received the Sharpshooter and Cloverleaf medals, the Grenade Launcher Expert medal, and was second in his class in the Wheel Mechanics School. He is a member of the American Legion Post 166. After service, Wayne drove truck for 27 years. First, he was a bulk milk driver for several, and then drove a truck for more seafood and